Welcome back! Another episode of Freedom Empowered, hosted by yours truly. My name is Mason, and my co-host's name is Nick. In case you guys are wondering if this is your first time listening, because we have been getting a lot of new listeners recently, what we do here on Freedom Empowered is we help you discover what your personal definition of freedom is. And one of the things that's interesting about it is that can be different for every person. So what we're going to do is analyze your life, or give you the tools of the 4 principles of freedom, and you can analyze your life with it. And once you know what it is that defines yourself as a free person, you can use the 4 principles to find out where you need to improve and what you're already good at. And then from there, what we do is we analyze the lives of other successful people using those 4 principles to determine what they did to get where they're at. And that's the interesting part about it, is because, as I just said multiple times, the key is that everyone's individual freedom is different. So that's why on this show we go through a large array of different kinds of success, whether it's business success, whether it's just success in sports, whether it's just having a good life. Whatever it is, whatever your goal is, it doesn't matter as long as it's individual and it's meant for you. And then from there, we're going to use our principles to help and guide you on your path. But yeah, today is another good episode. We've been talking about some controversial people lately, and this is another one. I think it's something that could really benefit us as a freedom empowered community, because it's always easy to point out the massive success of people who everyone agrees is successful. But then when you look at those that maybe society doesn't quite agree with, you have to, kind of take a deeper look to see how they are living the life that they wanted. I know on one of the past episodes we talked about Jackass, and to a lot of people that might not be success, or that might not be something to be proud of, but to them it was. And that's the point, and that's what makes this show different from all the other shows out there, is because we're not here to make everyone else happy. We're not here to make you agreeable in society's eyes. We're here to make you successful and you free in your own right, and whatever it is that you think you want to do with your life. And today we're going to talk a little bit about Lance Armstrong. You guys know him. He's a superhuman bicyclist, and most famously multiple-time Tour de France winner. But yeah, he had some controversy, which we'll get to later. But for now, we'll just start talking about his successes with Nick.
We'll start off with his successes. And Lance Armstrong was really a winner. In '93, he won a world championship. He won multiple Tour de France's. He was winning all his life, though. He started back when he was in high school. When he was 16, he was competing in triathlons. And he won, I think, 2 championships back when he was 16-ish. And then in '92 is when he began his career as a cyclist. And he started on the Motorola team, had crazy success there, and at multiple tournaments all over Europe. And then he won some stages in the Tour de France before winning the Tour de France himself. And he just had success his entire professional career. He had success, multiple tournaments. He was just good at what he did, and that's one of the things we talk about on this show. Finding something you're good at and you enjoy to do, and giving it your 100%, and it just proves that you're a winner.
It's true. And the only thing that stopped him was testicular cancer. But honestly, did it stop him? No, because as we're going to talk about, he actually overcame it, and that's one of the things that makes him so famous. And I kind of want to do, on a side note, I feel like we should do an episode on all the people that have beat cancer, like in an extreme way, because I think that could be, something very interesting. Because I mean, I don't know how much you guys know about cancer, but it's definitely a very hard battle, and I think there's a lot of people out there that will pull through when they probably shouldn't have, and a lot of it might be due to just the will to survive. I don't know. I don't know. I think a lot of it is not explained yet by science. But when you look at Lance, you have to assume that part of the reason why he survived is because he just refused to die, and it's an amazing thing. And then you go even further to where after he was overcame the cancer, he opened the Live Strong Foundation, and all of you know that because those little bracelets, those little yellow bracelets that everyone wore back in the day, those are from his foundation. It's an amazing thing, and that's another thing is when you are successful and you are, I don't know if I want to call him a celebrity, but if that's the case, you kind of have, I'm not going to say a duty, but when you can make a difference, you probably should. And when it's someone like him who, was on the stage and was, looked up upon by so many people, he decided to start the Live Strong Foundation where he can really impact the world. And I think that's a good thing. You always got to look for opportunities to give back.
Well, yeah, and the craziest thing about his cancer is that I'm pretty sure it was like terminal, wasn't it? Like it was like he didn't have a very high chance of surviving, and going through the whole recovery process. It's even crazier that he went back to cycling afterwards, and that he was arguably more successful after his cancer than he was before.
Well, I'll tell you right here. This is the facts. Docs told Lance initially that he had 20 to 50% chance to live, but after later speaking to those doctors, many of them said they just said that to give him hope, because with this kind of cancer, after the x-rays and the blood tests, there was basically no hope. There was basically no chance to survive, but that's what they told him. And he pulled through. And I think a lot of it is because he wanted to be there for his family. He wanted to survive. I don't even know. And then we're here talking about Lance Armstrong, the cyclist. But that's not even. If you ask Lance what his greatest accomplishments were, I don't know if he would say cycling. He might say that I overcame cancer to be there with my family, to take care of my kids, and to build this life with the people that he loves. So that's just a whole nother perspective to look at it from. And I think that's one of the things that makes him so interesting, is that what makes him famous around the world is this, massive success in cycling. But to him, I don't even know if that would be the case. He survived and clawed his way out of the clutches of death. And that is something that might be even better than winning a Tour de France.
Oh, yeah. Well, I would say having a life is much better than winning tournaments. But talking about his tournaments he won after his cancer are the crazy ones. When he joined the U.S. Postal Discovery Team back in 98, I think it was. 98. And from 98 through 2005, he won Tour de France titles. He even got a bronze medal in the 2000 Summer Olympics. So after beating cancer, he came out and was even better than he was before. He put in the training and the work to get to the top again.
No, yeah. That's one of the things that really gets me going, because I don't know how the guys, all of you guys and girls that are listening, I don't know how you think about him, because I know there was a massive amount of outrage after he was caught doping and basically using supplements or whatever to win these tournaments, or we'll get into it later, but there's a couple nuances to it. But regardless, the fact is that he was either caught cheating or suspected to be cheating, and I know that that can really be upsetting to a lot of people, but you look at I don't think it matters when you're looking at it from a freedom empowered stance, because the man overcame cancer. Like, I don't know how many of us out there could bounce back with, the biggest array of steroids. I don't know if we could win a Tour de France after, fighting from cancer. And I think one of the issues is that a lot of people, one of the reasons why there was so much hate is that people just like to try to take down greatness. If you're the best, you have the biggest target on your back. And I think that that's kind of the situation that he was in, because I know that I don't. Personally, I don't take that much skin off his back for having been caught blood doping, because he overcame cancer and he won 5 Tour de France's. So I don't know if any amount of steroids can really take that away from him.
Well,
but what do you think, Nick?
Well, Mason, I think even if we have those listeners listening right now, and they're thinking, oh, Lance Armstrong is a cheater, we think of him as a winner. Lance Armstrong, cheater or winner? That's going to be our episode title. You guys heard it here first. But if you're listening to this episode and you disagree with us about Lance Armstrong, that's okay. But I think everyone can agree on how him battling cancer and how him overcoming that obstacle in his life and being able to bounce back in his career, even if he was doping, I feel like we can still look at it in a positive way as an inspiring story.
Well, we keep talking about the way we're going to look at it, and I think that's an important thing to mention, is that it doesn't matter how we look at it. It's you know what I mean? This whole point is about defining your own definition of freedom, and it doesn't matter. We talk about our views because that's what we do here, is try to break down other people's successes. But at the end of the day, it does not matter what we think. It matters what he thinks. It matters what his family thinks. And if to him, and I mean, I know to him, he's a success, and I know to his family he's beloved. So does it really even matter what we think? You can have haters coming out of the woodwork to try to tear him down, but all that really matters is if he thinks he's a winner. And I think he's a winner. And it's just another way to look at it. I mean, another thing that really gets to me is a lot of people just really want to tear other people down. When you're the best, I told you, you have a big bullseye on your back. And if you think of like those people that were tearing him down, a lot of them are probably just trying to get some recognition out of it. You know, when you look at people like Shaun White, so this is another example. You guys know who Shaun White is? He's an Olympic champion snowboarder. I'm pretty sure he just won his 10th SB, is what I read somewhere, big for being like top male athlete. But he's an absolute amazing snowboarder. And during this last Olympics in Pyeongchang, South Korea, he dropped the American flag on his way down the mountain or whatever, and there was hate everywhere. There was it's obviously, everyone only hates on social media for a couple days, but there was a couple days where people were like, how dare he doesn't deserve the gold medal. Like, this man literally just won a gold medal for his country, one of many gold medals that he's made. He's literally just going to go down in history as someone who, won for their country. And there's people sitting at home on their couch with potato chips complaining and saying that he doesn't deserve it. And It's just the facts is that the better you get, the more haters you have. I don't know what you think about this, Nick. You could probably give your opinion because I do have a little bit of a one-sided opinion, and I know probably some of you listeners out there think I'm crazy.
Well, no, on this, I completely agree with you. Where people are always trying to hit you, or knock you down when you're up. We've talked about it in previous episodes where you can't listen to other people's opinions if they're not in the same level as you. If they're not in the same field and they're critiquing him and trying to bring him down over something that was an accident, and it's just ridiculous in my opinion that people were even getting upset about it. Like, it's an accident, get over it. But yeah, it's all about not listening to the haters. The haters are always going to try to hold you back because they're either jealous of your success or jealous of the way you want to get to success.
Right, and we do talk about that a lot. Is there's this big issue in modern society where, instead of trying to better yourself, it's much easier just to hold other people down. So then you don't have to put in any work, but then you still look better because you held someone else down. But that's not the way it should be. It should be everyone just trying to better themselves. And if you want to have some recognition, you do something to make yourself better. And I think that's something that we've gotten away from. Like, how many people, even if you gave yourself the Iron Man suit, I don't think that I could beat Lance Armstrong in a race. You know what I mean? This guy was going up mountains. He was going on hundreds of mile bike rides. And there's people that are talking shit. I don't know if I agree with that at all. It's just interesting to me. But yeah, Lance Armstrong. He more specifically, what he got in trouble for was, and this is an interesting part because he didn't actually get caught, from my understanding, with from a drug test. So what happened was, one of his former teammates, Floyd Landis, basically he got caught for using supplements or whatever, and then he turned in not only Lance but a bunch of his teammates for also doing the same thing. And it was basically at that point they built the case against Lance, and then what he did was he didn't even contest the case because he didn't want to put his family through it, he said. So he ended up just accepting the punishment, which, it wasn't a criminal investigation. He just got his Tour de France trophies taken away. Not even taken away, but just they erased him from the records of winning those tournaments. And, one thing that really gets to me is, I don't know if you should be turning in your teammates. I'm a big fan of loyalty, and I think that, there's times when you do have to stand up to do the right thing, and if there's someone's life at stake, or there's something, the potential for something very bad to happen, you might need to stand up and confront somebody. But I don't think that this guy Landis did it, out of the goodness of his heart. I really think he did it because he was trying to cover his own ass. What do you think, Nick?
Well, I don't necessarily see a problem with what he did. Maybe he just felt guilty about it and just wanted to get it off his chest. Like, if Landis wasn't cheating himself, but all of his other team members were cheating, I don't know, and you got no recognition for your team wins, I'd be a little upset too. I personally don't blame him for it.
I don't know. I don't think you throw your buddies under the bus to protect yourself. I really don't think so.
I just disagree on this one. I think it shows that he has, I guess, more character that he is willing to admit to it, or because those were his team members. You know what I mean? in a sport like that, you basically become family with your team members. And if it was a big enough deal for you to snitch on them, like, because you thought it was the right thing to do, I can't really knock the guy for that.
But you don't think that they got something out of it? You don't think that the reason why there was so much outrage that, maybe other people were benefiting from trying to tear him down? I mean, think about all the news reporters and all the critics and all the people that wrote articles that made a ton of money off, tearing down Lance. You don't think that comes into a factor at all?
Well, obviously, I think that comes into a factor, but that's more after the fact. The Landis thing, I didn't look into that, but I don't think he got very much for snitching on his teammates.
Okay. So we can have an agreement that maybe we don't know exactly what Landis's thing was. Maybe he did it out of the goodness of his heart, but for all of the reporters out there, what they were trying to do was make a buck off the downfall of Lance.
Oh yeah.
And one of go for it.
Yeah, well, I agree. Like, there's no money in saying, oh, no need to be mad at him. No, all the money comes from getting people riled up, making it a scene.
And I think the point of that is that everyone is just out there for their own self-interest. And in this scenario, it seems negative, but it's not a negative thing. That's the point of life. That's what happens when you're in a capitalistic environment or just in anywhere in human. It's just human nature. You are out there to do what's best for you and do what's best for your family. And as long as you're not hurting anyone else, no one really cares. But yeah, that's just the way it is. So if you're going to be out there to do what's best for yourself, I don't know. It's interesting.
Well, that's sort of human nature, like the self-interest, doing what's best for yourself or for your family, and just, people call it selfish. I call it protecting yourself. In a world where you're trying to be the best at something, people are always going to be coming after you to bring you down. So when you do something in your self-interest, people are going to call it selfish, but you're doing nothing wrong, in my opinion, if you're doing something that's benefiting yourself to protect yourself.
Well, I think no. This is actually pretty funny. Have you guys ever seen those videos of celebrities responding to people's Twitter comments, and you see there's the outlandish things that people will say? And I think that's a pretty prime example of it. Is they say it's really quite brutal, but that's a lot of the reason why people, where we say again, you should only listen to people that are on your level or that are close to you, is because there's always going to be someone out there that's going to criticize you. And if you should go watch them. They're super funny. I think it's a Jimmy Kimmel thing, but yeah, people are just ripping celebrities for just basically nothing. And imagine if they actually paid attention to every negative thing that was said to them. Like, I think I would go insane, and I think that's why a lot of them just refuse to go on social media, because they don't want to see that.
Well, yeah, that's why. That's actually the perfect example of not listening to what people have to say, like not paying attention to the comments of people who are just there to hate on what you're doing. And if they would have focused on that, they would probably not be successful, because you'd be going crazy if you were paying attention to all that negativity.
And yeah, I mean, when you look at, we talked about Jocko Willink. He's another podcaster. He's a ex-Navy SEAL. But he talks about taking ownership for, your own actions. And that's one of the things that gets things done, is because if you don't take ownership, like let's say you're in a business and something goes wrong and everyone's just like, no, it's his fault. But then if you take ownership guess what's going to happen? If you say, no, man, it's my fault, I'm sorry. He goes, no, man, it's my fault, I'm sorry. And now you have two people that are going to, work to make something better. There are two people that are working for, the next to make that a mistake right. And I think he has a very good point that you can't, if you constantly play the blame game or you're constantly trying to tear someone else down, you're just lost. Like, I don't want someone like that on my team. I don't want someone that's gonna just go and try to tear someone else down. Like, I think you're pretty much ruined at that point because, yeah, maybe right up front you might get away with it because you throw someone else under the bus to make yourself look better, and at the first time your boss might be like, oh, okay, like, you get a pass, but everyone else saw that. The way you get ahead in life is by taking extreme ownership of your actions, extreme ownership of things that you're not even responsible for. You just go out there and you be a good friend, you be a good team player, and if you're out there just constantly trying to make things better, everyone's going to want you on their team, and you're constantly going to go up.
Yeah, and it's sort of like if you're the person ratting someone out, or not necessarily ratting someone out, just letting someone else take the blame and you not owning up to your mistakes, you're a fake at that point. And at the end of the day, fakes aren't going to be the winners. Being a fake can only get you so far. Where, like, people who actually put in the work and take the ownership and have the drive to get to their goal are the ones who are going to be successful, they're going to overcome their failures. But when the fakes come with a problem and they fail at something, they're the ones who are, like, they have to take ownership. They're gonna be stuck.
And you could take ownership of something that you can take ownership of something that isn't even your responsibility. If you have a coworker that's new and they're just screwing up, and instead of just throwing them under the bus and be like, it's the new guy's fault, what if you said, no, it's my fault because I didn't teach him? Everyone's going to look at you like, wow, this guy actually cares. And if you look perfect, if you submit a resume or you are working at a job and you seem perfect, I know that I won't believe that because everyone makes mistakes. We talk about failure on this show because failure is necessary. Everyone's going to fail. So if you have just this perfect record, I'm honestly nervous when I see that because I'm like, hey, so you've never made a mistake? Oh, really? Or did you just blame your mistake on somebody else? No. The real winners constantly fight their ass off, and they fail time and time again. But as you've seen, and we made a post about it, JFK says, a mistake only becomes a failure if you don't do something to correct it. And yeah, you can fail as many times as you want. You can make as many mistakes as you want. But if you overcome it and you learn from it, and you correct it, and you go to the next level, that's it. First of all, that's just good for you because you're learning from your mistakes. But two, it's good for everyone else because you're there and you have your buddies' backs. There's really not very many jobs in today's society where it's not a team effort. Pretty much everything is a team effort. Unless you're a farmer or you're, I don't know, just pick one. If you're, I guess, a comedian or something like
Watercolor.
Something where watercolor, yeah, obviously, yeah. If you're a professional watercolorer, you can only blame yourself for using the wrong color. But in pretty much everything else, it's a team effort, and there's really no one to blame but yourself. And if you take ownership, others will take ownership too. You can't be a douche to make yourself look better and screw someone else over. But I think when you look at Lance, the man straight up had brain lesions. Let's just bring it back to Lance for a second. The dude had brain cancer. It spread to his brain, and they took it out of his head. And then people are still getting butthurt that he used a couple of supplements to get himself back on his feet. What? Like, this man he lost a nut and then he had surgery on his brain and came back from certain death, and people are going to complain that this man doesn't deserve everything that he accomplished. That's something that you just that I don't. That's not the way it works, man. If you want to be the best, if you want to go out there and achieve your personal freedom, it's not by tearing anyone else down. It's not at all. It's by learning from the people, and it's by learning from their mistakes too. It's going, hey, if I was Lance, maybe I wouldn't have done what he did, but that does not discredit the successes that he had, and that's why we're talking about him today, is because the learning experience that we're getting from talking about him is still profound. We are still learning so much from this man, regardless of any negative thing that people are saying about him, because he's a winner.
Well, like you said earlier, how no one is perfect. Everyone has made mistakes, and Lance is a good example of that. He was a great cyclist, great athlete, and he had cancer, and then he doped a little. That was his mistake. And Shaun White, he dropped the flag. That was his mistake, and people want to get so angry about those one mistakes, but I think the reason why they hate on them is because of their success. So if you're hating on them because of their success, and you can't look past a tiny mistake and look at all the great things that they've done, all the great successes, then the fault's at you. You're not going to get anywhere in life, because that's going to hold yourself back in the future. But we've even talked about legends on the show, like JFK. JFK wasn't perfect. Arnold wasn't perfect either. JFK banged Marilyn Monroe while he was in office, and Arnold banged a maid. And people hated on them, but I think for them, people eventually realized that there's more to them than just their one mistake.
Well, no, it's not even that. It's not even like that. You can admit that they made a mistake, but what we talk about on the show is successes, not mistakes. I know I was watching a comedy special with Bill Burr, and he said that why wouldn't Arnold think that he could get away with having an affair with his maid? He literally became famous for powerlifting, became an icon in Hollywood when he couldn't even speak English, and then he became, a leader of the greatest state in the Union. That I probably shouldn't have said that, because it's not if you're going to disagree, but at least one of the biggest states. You know what I mean? It's very difficult to become a governor of California, and then so why couldn't he think that he can have an affair with this man on the side? He could do anything else in the world he wanted. Why couldn't he do that? But that's the reason. There's a reason why we didn't mention any of those failures on this show before today. Because they just don't matter. Because here on Freedom Empowered, we're here to focus on achievements, focus on successes. We're here to find ways to make us better. And if we just focus on failures, there's always going to be a failure to confront. There's always going to be this caveat to why someone's success can be downplayed by some failure. But that's not what's important, because I know any of you out there would be willing to take Lance Armstrong's successes if you had to just also take his failures. So that's what we're here to do. We're here to, there's going to be a failure. When you go and you pursue your personal freedom, and you go use the 4 principles of freedom to better your life and start taking action on what it is that you want to do, you're going to fail. And guess what? I'm not going to talk about your failures, and neither is Nick. And neither is anyone that truly supports you, because they don't matter. Because you're just going to bounce back from your failures and continue on your path. And that's what's important here.
Well, like even in previous episodes when we've talked about someone's failures, we talked about it in terms of their success. Like JFK, we're not going to talk about how he banged Marilyn Monroe, because it had nothing to do with his success. It was just some side thing that really had no impact on anyone's life. Or Arnold. had no impact on anyone's life really, and it had no impact on his success. When we talk about failures on this show, we're mostly talking about like, I'm blanking, but someone who has like a successful company, how if they tried a company before and that company failed. That's the type of failure we like to talk about, because those are like mistakes you learn from, and it's like the steps to get to success.
Yeah, completely.
And I think these like small incidents are just petty to complain about, when these people have so much that you can learn from, and people choose to look at it in a negative way.
Right. So I guess if we can wrap up this episode with, a principle, it would be the moral of this episode is the only people that are gaining from talking about someone's failures are those who are specifically trying to make money off of or make their living off of tearing someone else down. But for those of us that are listening to this show, when we're here trying to create our own lives and trying to be successful in our own right, talking about someone else's failure doesn't help us. All that helps us is talking about other people's successes. So that's what we do here, and we just talk about legends, and we talk about people that might have even more obscure definitions of freedom. And that's something that we're going to really try to do more and more on the show, is talk about people that you're not even going to have really heard of, because their personal definition of freedom is going to be different. A lot of these people that we've been talking about, their personal definition of freedom is mainstream, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I know there's a lot of examples out there that we're going to start bringing to you where it's not, mainstream. It's going to be very, very unique. It's going to be a very niche version of success. And I think it can help a lot of you out, because I think a lot of our listeners out there are very niche type of people that want to do something that's different.
Well, before we wrap up the show, I just want to share a fun fact about Lance Armstrong. In 2011, he opened up a coffee shop in downtown Austin, Texas, and he called it Juan Pelota Cafe. And if you don't get it, it's somewhat of a joke, because Juan is like, sounds similar to one, and pelota means ball in Spanish. So even he could look at something so terrible like cancer and make jokes about it. I don't know, I just thought that was a cool fun fact to throw in there. He had a sense of humor.
He did, and that's honestly the key, because if you're not enjoying your life, you're not winning. And that's the key to personal freedom, is doing what you want to do. So I'll say it again, inherently defining your personal freedom has to mean that you're doing something you love. It doesn't have anything to do with money at all. It has to do with, what are you doing? Are you doing something that you love? So you guys, as you're sitting there trying to discover what your personal definition of freedom is, you need to really be smart about it. You can't take that first reactionary answer when we ask the question, if you could be doing anything in the world right now, what would it be? You can't take that first answer. You got to take a step back, give yourself 10 minutes, and think about what it is that I actually want. Because everyone wants to say they want a Bugatti, everyone wants a yacht, everyone wants something that's a product of money. But I can tell you for one thing, Lance did not give one fuck about money. His goal was to be the best cyclist and the best father that he could ever be. And he overcame cancer to do it. And he's going to work the rest of his life in these cancer charities and just trying to better the community around him. And that's something that we can be proud of. So, once again, thank you for joining us on Freedom Empowered. Go ahead and give us a like, share, a comment on Facebook, on any other of our platforms. Go ahead and start communicating. This is a community. We got to start communicating with each other. Let's go and start helping each other build ourselves up. And yeah, thanks again.